Hello traders and welcome back. I'm Natalie MacDonald. You're watching Sydney Direct on Dukascopy TV. This week I'm reporting from the FSC's annual conference taking place at the Gold Coast. One of the topics on the agenda is Australia's custodial services industries and the changes it's set to undergo. I caught up with Antoinette Elias of EY for a little bit more information. Antoinette Elias, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with Dukascopy TV today. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Natalie.
No problem at all. So today we're discussing the Australian custodial industry. How do you feel that this sector currently sits within a global platform?
The custodial sector in Australia currently manages about $2.3 trillion of assets. So from an Australian economy point of view, that's very large. From a global point of view, it represents about 1% of the world's global assets. So that gives you a size relativity locally, both globally. The other issues that the sector currently faces is that it is a sector that requires high technology. The level of regulation, whether it be tax or more broadly, does require a lot of investment from a technology point of view. And that is something that in turn does lead to pressure on margins. So the industry does have its own challenges, but it is a very important industry and also an industry that has a very good reputation. It's seen as a very good industry that focuses on its very core business of safekeeping of assets.
You mentioned there sort of the role of technology, growth of the industry. How really do you foresee this sector changing over sort of the next 5 to 10 years even?
So we've just listened to a debate on whether the industry will evolve or whether it will be revolutionary. I think the industry will need to respond to the many demands and changes of its clients. So the type of assets that clients now hold and want to be held in custody are very different to what occurred many years ago. And therefore keeping up with the complexities of the products themselves, the service offerings that clients are going to start demanding, where they will want a lot more data analytics, big data, the digitisation of the broader economy, but as well as the impact on the custodial industry, I think will be quite significant over the next 5 years. And I think the industry will need to respond in a number of ways. And one of those ways will again require quite a large investment in technology to be able to access data on a real-time basis and be able to give the information to the clients in the way that they want that.
You mentioned there sort of the demands of the client. How will these developments shape and change the client experience?
So I think clients are becoming much more focused on all their service providers, and custody is just one of those. And clients are also responding to their own consumers and investors. And when you look at what's happening in the digital world and the economy, with access to information being so much more timely and people want to know it and have it at hand immediately, it's those type of demands that will start to play into the requirements of the clients. We've already seen in the custodial industry in Australia that some of their biggest clients are the very large industry super funds. And already the bigger players in the market are starting to deal with their own assets and investments in a very different way to 5 years ago. For example, many of the funds are now insourcing investment management activities, and that then will change the interaction that they will have with their custodians for the safekeeping of the assets. So that's just a very small example of the type of changes that clients of custodians are facing, which means that will impact custodians. The opportunity for the custodians is that they will be able to create and provide different services, much more higher value adding services. And over time, with the right use of technology and the ability to analyse the data that they already have in their core systems, should assist in the alleviation of the margin pressure that they currently feel in relation to their core services.
We've seen also growth in assets being held for foreign clients. How is the industry likely to respond to that, and also the position that regulators will take on this matter also?
Yes, there is only way we go with regulation, and it tends to be greater, more increased. And of course, the purpose of regulation is to protect the investors, and in the case of custodians, to ensure that the assets are safely protected. And we operate in a global economy. So the globalisation, the fact that assets are being held offshore and that investors are also being held offshore, that's actually part of the industry. And custodians need to be able to respond to that. Most custodians are global players anyway, so they do reach into their own network to deal with that. The increase of foreign investors, so that the end consumer of the client, will result in different requirements from a regulatory point of view. So, for example, in Australia, just from a tax point of view, as a small example, there is a withholding tax obligation in relation to investment income that is paid to non-residents. That sits with the custodian. So a lot of the regulatory compliance burden actually does sit with the custodian, and so that will just continue to increase, particularly as governments start to look to protect their revenue base, increase their revenue base. So all of these things are going to add further pressure to the custodian.
Antoinette, it's a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalie. My pleasure.
That is all we've got time for right now, but our many thanks to Antoinette and the team at EY for their comments today. I'll be back shortly with plenty more exclusive interviews for you. For now though, it's goodbye.